anybody there? Okay, I think there's a few people in the audience. So this is where we begin, right? Does someone give me a cue? Is it like TV? How does it work?
So you have to address the audience, like maybe chat with someone in the audience, so they get to like you. The whole idea is...
Hello and welcome. You just smile.
Smile is good.
You can give your name also if you want.
Yeah. My name is Aayush Ailawadi. This is a show on BloombergQuint, and we're live. But the issue is, guys, I'm talking to nobody.
Yeah, but the thing is that there is no audience today, which actually is the case in most of the comedy shows or open mics.
So the problem is that there's two of you sitting somewhere at a distance.
Yes.
But with this lighting, I can't see who you guys are.
Yeah. So when you're telling stories, right, in stand-up, that's almost better because, you know, we look invisible. So is there a story you want to tell us?
There's a story that I want to tell you. In fact, there's a story about two stand-up comedians that I want to tell everyone. So for that, since y'all are the only two dudes out here, I'll need you guys to come to the front and we'll have a chat about how it's not that easy getting onto the stage and talking on an open mic.
Sure.
Well, two takeaways from my debut stand-up gig. That wasn't an ordinary audience. I clearly had two of the country's top comedians showing me the way. And secondly, there's a lot of work to be done if I ever want to consider it as a career. Anuvab and Atul Khatri. Two guys who don't need an introduction. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so
on
much
BloombergQuint.
Thanks for having us.
This is a conversation we've all been looking forward to. Anuvab, I'm going to start with you. When everyone talks about comedy, saying, hey man, it's easy. Just go up to a mic, start talking. You know, if you're the funny guy in your group, let's just do it. Quit your job. That seems like this really cool thing to do and actually get into comedy. Clearly, it's not that easy.
It isn't actually, it isn't. And sometimes you'll find, this is a really weird thing. What makes 500 people laugh may not make a dinner party laugh. And vice versa. Something that you think is hilarious at a dinner party by 6 friends, try it in front of 200 people, and it's just not relatable.
It's embarrassing.
It's just, yeah. Because you're like, oh, you know, Rajiv has this bad habit in the way he eats, and do that in front of 500 people, and they're like, who's Rajiv? So much is storytelling, context setting, who you are, and then in those 10 minutes, can you set the context, get sympathy, get people, it's a whole arc of a story.
It's what, Atul, the way Anuvab is describing is like a proper emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
And that's the way it has to be conceived. No, I'm saying, so stand-up is one thing, but another thing that I want to talk about was that, well, it's now become a business by itself, comedy. It's an industry.
Yes.
And your story is very interesting because, well, you actually do have your own business. You do run a business.
Yes.
And you got into comedy very late. And that too by, I believe, posting stuff on Facebook, which people found very funny.
Yeah, so it started with posting things on Facebook. So when Facebook came around, because I was really the first sort of medium. I mean, I was not on Orkut. Orkut was really the first, but first where you could put something, you know, if your own friend circle gave instant gratification, liked it, commented on it, and, you know, and started with that, and people say, hey, you're very funny, why don't you try a hand at stand-up comedy? I had no clue about stand-up comedy, you know. There was a time Russell Peter video had come, I'd watched that, and that's when I thought, yeah, maybe I can give a shot at it.
Right.
So it started with an open mic, how it should really start, and did well in the open mic. I met the other comedians there, they said, hey, don't leave it.
Clearly it didn't work out like my open mic.
No, sure.
But there's potential, he had potential,
Yeah,
right?
potential,
There's
yeah,
huge
absolutely.
potential.
But thanks, Anuvab. Your story is also interesting because whilst I've attended, a lot of people tuned in, have attended a lot of your gigs, and there's a lot of Calcutta, in a lot of mentions of Calcutta and Bengali culture, and of course, everyone knows, one of my favorite movies, Lawrence of Punjab, was a script written by you. The President is Coming was a script written by you. So was it something that you were really, you know, looking at as a hobby, script writing? Was it just, did it start out as a fun thing and then became very serious, or it's something you were considering seriously right from the start?
So script writing I was considering quite seriously. I'd studied dramatic writing in college.
Right.
Dramatic writing and finance, which is the most, till date my college did not have someone who graduated with those 2 degrees. And they shouldn't, they're just insanely opposite each other. Script writing was always my interest. I fell accidentally into stand-up.
Okay.
I don't know if I ever told this story, but I had gone to do an article on the opening of the first comedy club in Bombay.
As a journalist?
Just as a scriptwriter.
As a scriptwriter.
It was a magazine and they said, well, you've written a couple of funny films. Why don't you go write what it's like to see this audition of these comedians?
Okay.
And it's the first time I met Tanmay Bhatt and Ron Joshi and all these guys.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 2010, May. And the owner of that club at the time said, I'm not going to let you in unless you audition for stand-up.
Okay.
And I said, okay. I wasn't planning, that wasn't
Wow.
that wasn't the plan of the day, but that's how it began. And I think that when you accidentally fall into it, you tend to be lazier and you tend to sort of not understand the scale and speed at which something is growing.
Right.
Meaning, I think I met Khatri backstage in a green room, and by that time the profession was quite established. Khatri put in a lot of work, meaning you traveled, you did the open mics, you worked really hard and got fame. I was always thinking this was the whole thing is a joke. Like, I used to keep telling my colleagues, this is going to last, they're going to shut down this club in 2 days.
I think Comedy Store did that because at that time, if you have to interview, you have to take part on stage.
Yeah.
It's because they needed comics.
They needed comics.
Like anybody coming, like a vendor coming to deliver lights.
Yeah.
Listen, do you want lights?
Yeah. And I thought, who's going to come and listen to us telling stories and jokes? This is not going to last. And all my colleagues, who are now all very famous people, used to say, no, this is a profession. I said, no, they're going to shut this down Monday. I'm telling you. Monday, closed. 7 years, we're still here. We're sitting and having this chat. It's insane.
No, but that becomes even more interesting coming back to you, and I'm going to keep shuttling between your stories. Sure. I find them fascinating, Atul, because your business is a software business.
Yeah, software, hardware, networking.
So it's something that you're still running. It's not like you shut
very
shop.
recently got out of it. The company still exists. I have put in my papers and I'm got out of it. And
but can I ask you, so was that necessary considering how big your stand-up comedy career has actually gotten?
So the thing is, I'm really enjoying this better than that. That's really there. And I'm old. I'm turning 50 now. So I said, no, listen, I don't want to,
just
look
a couple
into
of years older than
finance, accounts, selling computers, software, licenses. I said, I just want to get away from it. And my wife feels I'm become a more happier person after getting into comedy. So I've decided to just do this for the rest of my life, whatever is remaining.
I feel like I think if Steve Jobs got into stand-up, it's like that. I think Atul said, now the software will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I'm above it now.
Maybe one day I shall return.
Maybe one day. No. It's now a large enough enterprise with offices in 500 countries.
That's it. Anuvab, your story is different. Because I asked about the article as well, because you've worked in the US, you've worked with a media company as well, and you've also, I also want to understand. So let's get the Lions of Punjab story out of the way. So that seems like something that you worked on in a more casual, fun, light-hearted way.
That's absolutely right.
And became too big.
It did become too big.
No one ever imagined it would be that big.
Manish Acharya, the late great Manish Acharya, my dear friend and brother, he had just quit MicroStrategy, which was a software company. I used to work for a big news organization, and I used to do business news actually.
There is hope.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. 7 years later, you'll end up here outside the stage at Cuckoo Club. We wrote that script at night, not thinking anyone would ever make it. I would finish my work at 6 o'clock in the evening. He just had his second kid, and we used to meet at night in coffee shops because I know, his wife was trying to put his kid to sleep, and we were sort of trying to come up with these jokes, thinking no one is going to watch this movie, nobody in the world. And then, it becomes sort of the highest grossing English language comedy made in India of all time. And
iconic.
Then we're thinking, oops.
Now we create.
But that was at the script writing stage. Now, when it had to become a full-fledged movie, I'm guessing you needed funding. You had to go out and reach out to top production houses and stuff like that. Yeah,
and Manish was an incredible entrepreneur because he came from an entrepreneurial background. So I honestly went along for the ride. I've always been a pessimist in that I thought nobody's going to fund this, and then someone funded it. He said no one's going to want to act in it, and then Shobhan Azmi said yes, and then that's how it was with President Is Coming. Opening night, I told Kunal Kapoor, no one's going to come watch this, and we were sold out 150 shows.
And you also sold out very recently in New York, perhaps one of the few Indian artists to have actually managed to sell out those shows in New York as well. Is that experience very different from actually performing in Bandra here, or in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Pune?
Yeah, there are stories that we can tell amongst ourselves, India stories. And by the way, I have to give a shout out to Vidas. I mean, I think Veer was sort of the leader in
Yeah.
being able to sell out massive things in the US
Yeah.
and in Europe, and we're sort of, I feel like, following in smaller rooms.
Yeah, actually, a lot of Veer is opening up
Yeah.
ways, like
When say there's opening doors, he literally opened the
Yeah.
door to some of those theaters that some of us went into.
So it might not be it won't be a far-fetched pipe dream to think about one of our top comedians coming on, the Daily Show, if not, because he's on Conan O'Brien, those
Yeah.
videos are going viral.
Yeah.
I would think Veer would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
on Trevor Noah or John Oliver, one of those easily.
not?
Which I feel like, Atul, is that the natural evolution? Because the way things are in the US, comedians play all sorts of roles. Also, I mean, be it Hollywood, be it the daily shows, be it satire, and a very strong role in society as well. Because considering, how political satire plays a key role, all of these guys, John Oliver, Jon Stewart, Trevor Noah now, who's doing a fantastic job, I think, even post Jon Stewart. These are guys who, even at times when in the US the perception is that the media hasn't managed, to cover something, they do.
Yeah.
And perhaps the understanding of a topic becomes a lot more, far-reaching once these guys actually cover it.
Yeah.
Is that the next evolution, you think, for us out here in India?
The thing is, I think with our TV laws which are there, I really don't think so for a long time.
Yeah.
Because honestly, half the things which these guys say on TV, I don't think we can say.
But I think YouTube's done it. I think
YouTube has done it, yeah. So TV no, but YouTube.
Yeah.
On
So
the
what
digital
Atul's
space.
doing, or what?
So we had to have when I was a part of the AIC, we had a very popular thing called AIC Outrage, which was very similar.
Right.
Political satire trying to do it.
Yeah.
AIB did the AIB on air.
Yeah.
So, but these are all on YouTube,
Yeah.
on these platforms.
Yeah.
And all the stand-up you see on YouTube that people are sharing now on clips and so on, those are all some sort of anti-establishment something.
Yeah,
Either
absolutely.
it's anti-establishment parents, like, fathers say this, and it's breaking some sort of convention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Aditi Mittal talking about, the new sort of thinking among women and
Right.
and how that's revolutionary from the old thing. So all that rebellion is on YouTube, and people are lapping it up. Just see the number of views.
Yeah. But that brings me to my next question. There is money to be made. So comedy now, as it is in India per se, is a serious business as well. Because you guys have agents, you're now in shows all over the world, you're at corporate events, weddings, parties. It's the real deal.
Well, I'm Atul's driver, so he can answer on the financial aspect of it. Which is
No, it's definitely become a serious business, but there's a lot of hard work, obviously, which goes into it, and planning just like any other business. And other than just pure stand-up comedy, like as he said, script writing.
Yeah.
Some of us write, the film award shows, or trying to make scripts funnier. A lot of the social media branded digital work.
Yeah.
As social media influencers, a lot of us are doing that. So it has definitely opened up doors, and you have to be very, you have to keep an eye out also on the business part of it.
Yeah.
Other than just the, the creative part of it, which so you have to have a hand in hand in both.
also, like, we are going to follow a similar trajectory every country has followed.
Correct.
If you look at the US, stand-up comedians went in several directions.
Yeah.
Some became movie stars, right? Saturday Night Live to movie stars. Adam Sandler,
Absolutely.
Will Ferrell, they became movie stars. Some became late night hosts, right? So if you take India also, like an Abish Mathew will do his late night show, right? He's got a great personality. Someone like Kanan Gill becomes a movie star.
Yeah.
He's starring opposite Sonakshi Sinha in a movie. Some of us write and direct. Some of us, become ad writers, or like Atul's done a bunch of ads that he's in. So I think stand-up then becomes a platform as a generation of us sort of will eventually sort of
Right.
go out of it. A new generation will take over, which we're seeing now with the Kunal Kamras and the Abhishek Upamanyus of the world,
Yeah.
sort of becoming the live performers. And they then also will find their own space with a news show or something.
So essentially, and another way, another natural way that I saw is an interesting experiment as well. So what, Jim Gaffigan, what he's doing in the US with the Jim Gaffigan show, it's not essentially a stand-up gig. It is literally his personal life being documented as a comedy show, which is playing out on channels now. And, his wife, his children, maybe that's another way, because it's not you necessarily playing a role, but your own life seems to be interesting enough for everyone else to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Vipul Goel does one called Humorously Yours
on the TVF,
TVF, which is he's a comedian, he's married, he's on the road, He has petty jealousies with other comedians. Very funny, right? I think it's only a matter of time before we see something like the Gaffigan show or Louis or Seinfeld on, that's like becomes really popular.
But then, so is this one sort of leveler for me seems to be what the Netflixes and the Amazons have done. Because it seems like now, considering the comedy space in India, it's pretty much like you've arrived if you've got a show on Amazon or Netflix on the comedy space.
In India, honestly, we have been very lucky.
Okay.
5 years in this industry and we are sitting with you, on this channel and talking about comedy, In any other country, you have to spend like 40 years to be here, The kind of competition is there. And
I followed a reasonably famous comedian around in the UK.
Okay.
London is not a big city.
Right.
He's got 2 kids and a wife. He's a reasonably famous comedian, right? He doesn't have any of the YouTube or Twitter following. He's a stage comedian.
Right.
He does 7 gigs a night. 7. Right?
Whoa.
We do 1 gig and we celebrate with each other. Oh, we've conquered the world. People have said you're a genius. So the greatest thing to happen. That guy did a show with me and did 6 more that night. 20 minutes here, came out, took a check, went to another club, did 20 minutes. So, I completely agree with Atul that I also think there's a certain deification in India of an art form. Like if people like you, they give you so much love that it actually hampers the craft. You start thinking you're really brilliant.
Yeah.
Whereas that guy probably has like 4 hours of jokes, more than any of us. And then, but he's back home writing new jokes because no one treats him special. He gets in the subway, goes with his bag of jokes to another place. And in India, people will be carrying him on their shoulder.
Absolutely.
They're just making him
very pampered.
So we've been lucky.
But also, you guys do a lot of shows abroad. You're always jetting off to some new destination. But I want to understand how much of a challenge it is. One, being your shows abroad, and 2, within India, because we're such a massive country, right? The audience in Mumbai or in South Bombay, in Delhi, in Punjab, in Bangalore, in Pune, in Chennai, everyone would have a very different sort of sense of humor. And do you have to tweak your sets to that audience?
I personally think, especially when you're performing in a new city, like if I'm supposing performing in Jabalpur.
Right.
I'm going for a show to Kanpur.
Okay.
Now, Kanpur has seen probably 1 or 2 comedy shows. What happens is, as a comedian, also there is a slight kind of responsibility towards me to say that I don't scare them away from stand-up comedy. Okay. So what I will do is, typically, honestly, I will go and play the very, level 1 jokes, Sindhi jokes, Gujarati jokes, to get them in, Yeah. But if I also have some few dark jokes. If I go straight on dark jokes or very anti-established and high-end jokes, I say, oh, this is stand-up comedy. This is that comedy they talk about.
This is
let me go and watch, Kapil Sharma on TV.
Yes.
That's better for me.
Yes.
This is too much for me. They're saying bad words. They are saying this. They are abusing. They are, making fun of the front row because they have never seen stand-up comedy.
Right.
So there is, I think, some responsibility towards us to take them through. Like today, if you make silly jokes in a Bombay in a comedy club, people say, yeah, get over this. Now get us to the second level, because we are a comedy audience. We've seen you.
Much more evolved.
Absolutely. So but I still feel that a lot of people in India yet have to, luckily we have 1.3 billion Indians, and I don't know what the urban population is. I think it's around, I heard it's around 10 million or 15 million is a figure which attracts our comedy. We still haven't, And one last thing I want to also say is that even though you say these smaller cities, I don't think today, thanks to WhatsApp, thanks to technology, thanks to Geo, today everybody's skewed on, At one time you could say a kid in Delhi or a Bombay was smarter than the kid in probably Chennai or a Jabalpur. Today, I think it's very little, it's just, and honestly I feel that the people in Jabalpur or Chennai have more spending power, the kid over there, because their options are less.
Absolutely.
So I've had some shows. I did a show 4 years back in Ludhiana, and they had kept tickets of 1,200 rupees. I said, are you mad? Who will buy 1,200 tickets? And it was sold out, because for them this was like a new circus come.
Atul's the rock star. He's Rolling Stones going through that town. It's true. Smaller towns.
One of his jokes, and everyone, even planning this show and everyone, was the Justin Bieber video that Atul did, which went viral, right?
Yeah.
Where he talks about tickets for his show and tickets for Justin Bieber's show.
Yeah. It's unfair. He should be higher.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I don't lip sync also. Yeah.
Also, there's information. I don't have kids. There's information I didn't have. Like there's a DJ who covers his face. Till I saw his video.
Right.
Nowadays, I think we watch each other's videos to learn things. Like I'll sometimes see a Zakir video and say, "Oh, that's how it happens." Part of it is information. Part of it is joke.
But Anuvab, what I find very fascinating is, and from I've met some of you guys before. There seems like there's this sort of banter and this chemistry and a friendship with all of you guys in the comedy space, which is that unusual? Is that normal in the creative space? You see people are very competitive usually, be it Bollywood or performing arts. That's refreshing if that's true?
Well, I don't know how you feel about it, but I've been quite lucky with the people I've met in comedy, in that they've been generous and kind, and they've opened their organizations or their sort of friendships and networks, and I've tried to do the same as I have sort of gone through the years, because there's a great line from Louis, I'll never forget, where he meets Joan Rivers. So he said, what's one thing, and she has a career for 50 years. So Louis says, what is one thing I need to keep in mind? He said, remember the names. Remember the names on the way up, because you'll need them on the way down. And I think that's true for any career. And any career that, I don't know how it is in other industries, that says, oh, this is mine and I'm closed and I'm going to protect this, right? It's not an art form, right? It's I've tried to go out and tell people about comedians I've liked. Khatri and I, we were lucky enough to be colleagues over the years. We've enjoyed each other's work. But I've also enjoyed Biswa's work. I'm very fond of his work. Right. Kunal Kamra, I'm very fond of his work. He's also a good friend. Rajnish Kapoor. And why would I not tell other people to go and see their shows, and they would vice versa? I feel the whole industry grows. Tomorrow, X goes to perform in Australia. I go to perform in the US. I tell that person, oh, you should get that guy. He's never performed in the US. He tells the Australian guy, he's never. And that's how you create networks and
that is how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the only, and you know what, I've come from a computer business, and I've seen brutal competition. To sell a computer where your margin would be like 200 rupees, there'll be like 6 guys sitting for that one order. So when I came in this industry, so first thing I said, listen, let's not have any of this. And the competition, it's the market, and it's very individual, the stand-up.
Right.
Anuvab's style is very different than mine. We can never, we can go overlap a little bit in that pie, but it's very different, Kunal's is very different, Daniel's is very different.
It's your upbringing, it's who you are. Yeah. It's a comedian cannot steal from another comedian because it's who you are, I mean, Daniel's a great example. He's a tall, handsome man who tells stories from his life, right? If I tried to tell him stories, it would sound pathetic. It would be horrifying. No one would come.
I really don't, I don't approve of this question at all, because I don't think you can grow as an industry if you don't look outwards.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. I know another thing I want to ask you was that when you actually do go up, like for a show, today was obviously just an excuse to talk to you guys. But when you do an open mic or a stand-up, and obviously you've been doing this for a long time, it has changed over the years. You've seen how the market has changed, how the audience has changed. Is it like a bag of nerves, a lot of butterflies every time, even till today? Because now you guys are pros.
Yeah.
When you started off, I'm sure.
Man, no, every time. And I read about it, that the day you don't have it, you'll go and bomb once, and it actually happened with me. I once said, hey, listen, this looks like a very good room. Like, it's like all couples, my types, and I'll go and kill, like from backstage. And I went there and bombed like a lead rock. So
you can have the same audience sitting and play that same room, say this one, 3 times the same night, and you don't know the outcome.
Yeah.
It's just how you deliver, which is why I'm not a YouTube comedian. I never have been. I have some clips out that people have watched and put out. Because the only reason I do it is because, and I've worked maybe I'd say every single weekend since 2010.
Right.
And that's because I enjoy the thing of it.
Yeah.
And I think a room, 100 people in a room, 500 people in a room, becomes an organism. You meet those 500 people outside, tell them the same joke individually, no one will laugh.
Yeah.
But when they come together in the darkness, the strangers you couldn't see, it becomes a living thing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more exciting than that.
But there's another, interesting point when it comes to stand-up, actually comedy, why I call it stand-up, is that whilst these crazy comedy empires are built, and this brand is built globally, where you're performing in Hong Kong one day and then in California the next, and also you're doing Amazon shows, Netflix shows, perhaps you have your own daily show, sometimes stand-up by itself, your gigs are some things, is something that you stop doing, considering you do so much more. That is a concern when you're so busy doing, heading for world domination.
Because the travel is quite extensive. If you're traveling every weekend, when you're sitting down to write, I have 2 sides of my head. I like writing and directing. I like writing and directing independent films. now web shows, but the thing is the same. You're writing and directing independent sort of urban Indian stories. But if the other half, and writing stand-up is very different. I don't know how it is for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very different from, I'll tell you this, the people think it's really easy, but ask any stand-up comedian and they'll tell you that maybe you need, like, the most you can write at a time is 7 minutes. And when you play that in front of an audience, it becomes 3 minutes. So you may have worked on something for a year, but you'd have 2 minutes of a joke. In the time that it takes to write stand-up, I could have finished a whole play or an episode of a web series. It's a brutal, brutal profession. It's just, I don't know how to explain this. I used to think it's like, or golf or something. You think it looks really simple.
Yeah.
But what gets crafted into a joke could take like 3 months. So you need to give it, you're absolutely right, you need to give it that time.
Yeah, you know, as a person also, as a comedian, you're evolving, you know. You are, you know, trying to find your voice. I mean, I still feel that I haven't found mine, even though it's been 5 years. Because I'm coming back, I think we are just too pampered. We are getting this adulation so fast, so quick, we're selling out rooms. We need to work hard on our craft.
That's really a mature way of looking at it. But having said that, you know, another question I want to ask you guys very quickly was something that you were referring to earlier when you were talking about you performing in Jabalpur, in Delhi, in Mumbai. There are some sort of social filters that you have to really put. That's why I was asking the question as well, based on the audience and also the fact that you are in India. Is that, and that comes back to my question of you performing in New York as well, or in London. I remember at the Comedy Store, it was Manchester and Mumbai where you could have a very free-flowing, fun conversation. Perhaps another city which wouldn't find those jokes too funny, it could be a concern, it could become a problem as well. Is that a fear sometimes, saying, what if these guys don't take the wrong meaning out of my jokes?
You have to be cognizant of where you are, like Atul was saying. I've performed in a church in the UK, inside a church where they do gigs. Their only request is don't be profane, don't use bad. Fair enough, you're inside a church. It's the least you can do, right? I've performed in front of lots of old people, and I've just been careful about the stories I want to tell, because you got to think as a human being you wouldn't do that. Forget about a stand-up. You wouldn't in front of a human being go out and just say random things, no matter how good the joke was, which were profane or things for that crowd. That same set of stories may be brilliant in front of, say, an N87 crowd. So as a human being, I think one of the reasons people pay comedians is to be aware of where they are. It's the least they can do.
I've got shows where they tell me, go and say whatever you want. And I go on stage and I see 6 kids, children sitting over there. As a father, I would know their parents would squirm in their seat every time I said the F word. So I drop all the F words. And then I get off stage and guys said, hey, why did you control us? I said, listen, there were 6 children there, which you didn't tell me before. And as a human being, I cannot do that. I don't want, I've at the end of it want people to get entertained and go, not anybody feeling, oh my God, we did a wrong thing coming for the show. Also, second thing, in different countries, you have to follow. You're going there to make money. You're going to entertain. Your idea is to entertain.
Right.
Like if you go in a room like Dubai, there are always Indians and Pakistanis sitting. Now, I have a very strong, a very funny, not anti-Pakistan, it's more about my observation on the Wagah border, But I know if I do that, Pakistanis may feel a little hurt. Like, they'll go back, no, you should have not done that. That's why I don't do it, there. I want them to enjoy and go. I don't want them to, feel, oh my God, why did we come here?
Yeah. Also language filters. I know being an anglicized comedian, the way I speak, and also I'm sure Khatri and Pant and a lot of us that do it in English know how English plays in Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai versus Ludhiana, Jalandhar.
Absolutely.
Like I used to do this thing about porn, okay? Now I did it in Hong Kong and I was saying porn, and throughout the thing they were thinking I'm talking about a chess porn. But over there you have to say porn. You have to roll your eyes. Yeah, they couldn't understand the thing. So they were, and my set used to kill everywhere. And I went and said, that guy said, what were you talking about? I said, I was talking about porn. He said, oh, we thought you were talking about the chess pawn, P-A-W-N. So you have to say porn, so just such a simple thing.
That is quite interesting.
No, it's been fascinating, guys. We can go on talking. What we're going to do is, even if we wrap this up, you guys can give me a few more inside tips as to how to ace my stand-up gig. But thanks so much, guys, for speaking with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, Anuvab and Atul.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Thank you for having us over.
Great chat. For all of you, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint.